Welcome, committee and guests. We'll call the meeting of the Senate, Fed, and State to order. And first is, do we have any bill introductions? Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two bill introductions, and I will get the RS numbers to Connie. I don't have them with me. They are both highway namings. One's Highway 69, and the other is 169. So I will get those to her.
Committee, is there any objection to introducing these bills? Seeing none, the bills will be introduced. Thank you very much. Are there any other bill introductions? Okay. Our first hearing today is on House Bill, Senate substitute for House Bill 2089, standardizing firearm safety education training programs in our local schools. And Jason, could we get a staff briefing, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, substitute for House Bill 2089 comes over from the House and would create a new section of law to standardize firearm safety education programs that are offered by public schools in the state. The new section of law, which is to be known as the Royale Act, would direct the State Board of Education to establish curriculum guidance for standardizing such programs. The local Board of Education of each school district would still retain the sole discretion as to whether or not to offer such programs in the district's public schools. But if the programs all are offered, then they must be offered in accordance with the curriculum guidance provided by the State Board of Education. The bill also specifies that guidance shall include the following. For grades kindergarten through 5, the programs would be based on the Eddie Eagle Gun Safe program offered by the National Rifle Association or any successor program. For grades 6 through 8, the program could be one of two, either the Eddie Eagle Gun Safe program or the Hunter Education in Our Schools program, which is offered by the Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks, and Tourism. And then for high school grades 9 through 12, the program would be based on the Hunter Education in Our Schools program offered by the department. The bill would go into effect on July 1st. If enacted, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Are there any questions? Senator Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, so I'm a big supporter of Royale's law. And Eddie the Eagle is kind of like, remember Smokey the Bear? But exactly with the training piece, with the Eddie the Eagle piece of it, so would guns be kept on the high school grounds in a locker or something, or would they be brought each time the training is provided?
I do not know the specifics of how those programs are conducted. That's probably a better question for one of our conferees as to how the programs would actually be conducted on school grounds.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, so the Royale piece in there, so legislation, I had introduced it another year, and I'm glad that Representative Penn was able to get that in this bill. But what piece of that is in there? I know originally Royale's law pertained to lock boxes because of Sonny Smith's son, who was at a play date and the lock box was broken, and the 8-year-old accidentally killed the 9-year-old. So what training piece of that would be in this legislation? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Currently there is no statute that is known as Royale's Act or the Spencer Royale Act. There are two bills. There's this bill 2089, which proposes to name this section of law the Royale Act, and then there's also Senate Bill 294, Senator, that you're referring to, that would require firearms to be kept securely stored in the home. And that would propose to name that section of law the Spencer Royale Firearms Safety Act, I believe, if I recall correctly. Neither bill has been enacted yet. This bill does not contain any provisions from Senate Bill 294 regarding the safe storage of firearms.
Any other questions? Jason, thank you, Jason. Our first proponent will be Representative Pat Penn. Patrick, welcome to the committee.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, distinguished members of the committee. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to speak with you today. To go back on Senator Fowler's question, yes, ma'am, this does not include anything with the Safe Storage Act that was proposed. It was brought to my attention that would also ask for a criminal component as well, and this bill does not address any of that. Mr. Chairman, well over a month ago, now 2 months, a woman and a mother of extraordinary mettle and fortitude, one of Senator Fowler's constituents actually, Miss Geneva Sunny Smith, reached out to me for help. Some of you are familiar now with Miss Smith's story of tragedy, and you know the deep loss that she, her family, and the community in Wichita suffered when she lost her young 9-year-old son, Royale Spencer, on January 21st, 2019, after sleepover when children without proper gun safety training handled a firearm. She has since started the Royale Foundation to advocate in honor of her son's memory. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to give voice to Sunny Smith by sharing with your committee members her words that she just sent to me on 11 March, and the emphasis is mine. She said, "I am pleased to hear that the Royale Act has made it this far. Most of you know the backstory of my son's story. It is an honor that Representative Penn is pushing for the act to be added into legislation. Most know that in 2019, I was pushing for a Safe Storage Act because of my son's death. The fact of the matter is the support is simply not there. I support HB 2089. Education is a must when it pertains to our children. Royale was not trained about gun safety for the simple fact that there were no firearms in our home. I am a firm believer in the right to bear arms, and I also believe there needs to be a component of education added as well. As you proceed today, please take into account the fact that one day it may be your child that will be present at a friend's home in Royale's situation. And with this training, it can prevent the pain that I have endured. Let's protect our children and add this education component." Mr. Chairman, while many aspects of the tragic incident that may remain unknown to Ms. Smith, the fact is that today we can pass the Royale Act to honor the memory of little Royale Spencer and protect our children and grandchildren also. Let us now come together and come alongside Sunny Smith in strength. Let us ease with this measure before you to some small degree the unbearable hurt that Ms. Smith's heart carries. Let us promote and ensure that our children in Kansas are properly educated in grade appropriate fashion on firearm accident prevention and how to practice gun safety in accordance with our Kansas law. Ms. Smith stated that while she may not get the exact justice that she seeks in her personal loss, her drive and her fight now is to protect any other parent from experiencing her pain. This educational amendment will help in that goal. Its language has previously enjoyed overwhelming bipartisan support. It passed out of the House. And sir, I urge you today to join me in support and vote yes on the Royale Act today. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman and committee. I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions? Senator Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Patrick Penn. I'm a little confused if I believe the reviser Jason Long said that no part of the actual piece legislation of the original Royals Act is in this bill. And I know that Sunny Smith wanted it to some training of the lock boxes that are in the homes, and perhaps we could tweak this a little bit, removing that criminal piece in there. I also just talked to Sunny Smith, and to this day, after 2 years ago, after I offered a resolution on the Senate floor for Sunny Geneva Smith is her name, that at that time introducing the bill, a member of this committee, actually, who's no longer on this committee, but rejected to introducing the actual bill. So I went a resolution route and then introduced the bill again, which it was not objected to. But so if we're calling it Royale's law, but it pertains legislation or language from I believe Representative Blake Carpenter initially introduced or some talk years ago Eddie the Eagle, and I actually support that piece of it, and I do believe in the training aspect of it. But how can I'd love to hear your point of how we could work in some of the actual language of Royale's law to make it legitimate of what the initial intent of the legislation was. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Penn?
Thank you, sir. Finance must know about that promotion. Thank you, Senator Falscadeau. Simple distinction, Royale Act that is before you today is, as the revisor mentioned, just the K through 12 educational piece, stating that it must be in place, but local control is to the school boards, local school districts, to actually activate said training program. What this act is not Royale's law, which is what you're referring to, which deals with the issue of a gun safety, gun lockbox safety, I believe it is gun safety, those items, as well as the criminality if someone gets into it, a child gets into it, that responsibility piece and any penalties therewith. That is not what Royale Act is. I would personally say to keep Royale Act clean and pass it out of committee clean so that we can actually get this legislation done. Personally, what I would say is that what Ms. Smith had communicated to me is that she is in favor of this because she understands that the education component has to be had. This was language from an earlier bill, as you mentioned, years before I got to the legislature. I pulled out what was the agreed upon language, and I believe that it is the best of breed to bring forward for consideration. Thank you, Senator.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, Senator.
Our next proponent would be Mr. Jason Watkins of the Kansas Rifle Association. Jason, welcome again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason Watkins appearing for the Kansas State Rifle Association. And I'll try to just quickly cover some points that weren't covered by Representative Penn. Let me talk just briefly about the Eddie Eagle program. It is an NRA program. It's been around since 1988. A couple of important distinctions here. One, it makes no value judgments one way or the other on guns or gun ownership. Eddie the Eagle, as his name suggests, is an eagle. And he has a bunch of friends that talk about gun safety, and they're known as the wing team. There are no guns. Eddie doesn't bring any guns into the school, real or play. In fact, there's no guns in Eddie's video. They just pretend that they see a gun. And really, for the K through 8 program, it makes 4 points. Stop, don't touch, run away, tell a grown-up. And that's what Eddie and the wing team talk about repeatedly in their videos. Or when you get somebody like Travis Lovelady to dress up like Eddie the Eagle and come to your school, he will repeat those 4 things. Similar to Eddie Eagle, the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks, hunter safety, that could be through middle school, but then also offered in high school. And you can obviously do hunter safety without a weapon. My son shot on the skeet team in high school. They weren't allowed to bring those guns to school. You drive home, you get it, and then you go to practice or you go to your competition. And we're not in any way suggesting that change. The final point that I would make, second to final point I would make, is that 50% of American homes have firearms. And again, this program's not making any judgment on firearms. This is about teaching kids what to do if they find one. Stay away from it, tell an adult. And I will let that go ahead and be my final point, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to answer questions if the committee has any.
Thank you, Jason. I see Senator Ware and then Senator Falscadeau. Senator Ware?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what you've said sounds pretty reasonable. Are there any alternatives to this curriculum for gun instruction for kids?
There may well be. I'm not aware of those other programs. Again, the Eddie the Eagle program has been around since 1988. The different state and of course the National Rifle Association have funded the curriculum of that and the costumes, et cetera. And then, you know, hunter safety, I think, is pretty universal across the United States.
If I may. So I'm a little unhappy that we specified exactly this curriculum as opposed to something more general, because then if something else came up, their hands would be tied. I would be much happier if it wasn't nearly so specific on that.
Well, I think where the proponents of this bill are coming from, we have a program that's been developed. It goes back to 1988. It's been successful. It's been used across the United States. There's really not a need to reinvent the wheel. I will say the Attorney General's been clear that one legislature can't bind a future legislature. So if a program comes along that far surpasses the success of the Eddie Eagle gun safety program, the legislature could always come in future sessions and replace the Eddie Eagle program with whatever it is that one might imagine would be better.
Senator Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Jason, thank you so much for elaborating a little bit more on the legislation and the way that Eddie the Eagle actually works within the school. So, just to clarify again, you said that no guns would be brought on the school.
That is correct,
grounds.
Senator.
And then did you say that the implementation would depend on each school district, or could you please restate that again?
This is not a required program. The school district can decide whether or not they want to offer gun safety grades K through 12. If they're going to offer it, then they are supposed to use the Eddie Eagle program or the Kansas Wildlife and Parks hunter safety education for secondary students.
Any other questions? Yes, Senator Dietrich.
Thank you. Excuse me, this might be, actually, I'm not sure you can answer this, but so in our rural communities, I'm not sure what they use to teach firearm safety. In our suburban, folks tend to go to like the Boy Scouts to get that hunter safety piece. They get their badge. So where are we teaching Eddie Eagle? Do you know that? I mean, where would you find it? Where do you go to find it now?
I think right now you can, there's certainly the online program that I know, and I can't give you a list of schools that are doing it and not doing it, but right now, if Mays Elementary, where my kids went, if they wanted to offer it, they could contact the National Rifle Association or the Kansas State Rifle Association. We can help them with handouts. Again, might get Travis in the Eddie the Eagle outfit, or there is an online program. There's a video that teachers can use in the classroom.
I was just kind of curious about that because I know about the Boy Scout program. And just, thank you.
Senator Reichman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is for the local school board. Can they choose to just do part of, or going to be like, can they just choose for the high school, or how does that work? They have the option to choose what they want. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to attempt to answer this, and if the reviser thinks I'm incorrect, I would certainly stand with what he believes. This is not a required program, so again, it is optional. And I believe the way the bill is written, that if the local school board said, we think it's really important that we get Eddie the Eagle in front of grades K through 8, but we think it's less important to do hunter safety in grades 9 through 12, I believe that would be left up to the local school board, and they could in fact make that decision.
Any further questions? Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We do have one written, it's in your packet. And we have a neutral, Mr. Brad Lovelace, with the Secretary of Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks, and Tourism. Yeah, he's written on that, okay. And also in your packet, are there any other neutral or proponents? Seeing none, we do have 3 opponents, and they are written and they are in your packet. So if there's any other questions, we'll close the hearing on Senate substitute for House Bill 2089. And we'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 262. This is authorizing a vote in Sedgwick County to allow the operation of electronic gaming machines at racetrack gaming facilities and prohibiting betting on Greyhound races. And so, Jason, could you give us a staff briefing, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senate Bill 262 creates new law and makes various amendments concerning horse and greyhound racing in Kansas and the operation of slot machines by the Kansas Lottery at those race tracks under the Kansas Expanded Lottery Act. First, I'll point out Senate Bill 262 would prohibit all forms of greyhound racing and betting on greyhound races in Kansas. That is sections 1 through 3, which prohibit the 3 primary entities that could conduct greyhound racing or take bets on greyhound races. So it prohibit the lottery and racetrack gaming facility managers under the Expanded Lottery Act, and any racetrack facility licensee under the Pari-Mutuel Wagering Act from conducting any greyhound races or facilitating the betting on any greyhound races, regardless of where the race may actually be conducted. Section 4 and other amendments in Senate Bill 262 simply make conforming amendments to abolish certain funds connected to greyhound racing and greyhound racing purses, and to remove references to greyhound racing from both the Expanded Lottery Act and the Kansas Pari-Mutuel Racing Act. The second primary policy piece of Senate Bill 262 is to authorize an election which would most likely be conducted in Sedgwick County on the question of whether the lottery may operate slot machines at a racetrack gaming facility located in Sedgwick County. And that facility, under the question as it's amended under Senate Bill 262, would be the park formerly known or commonly known as the Wichita Greyhound Park. The authorization is actually in section 11 of Senate Bill 262, where there's an amendment to an existing statute in the Kansas Expanded Lottery Act. The election on this question was conducted after the enactment of the Expanded Lottery Act and resulted in the majority of the voters of Sedgwick County rejecting that question back then. Under 262, any county where there's an existing or former pari-mutuel racetrack, such as the Wichita Greyhound Park, in any such county, the Board of County Commissioners, on its own initiative or upon submission of a signed petition by at least 5,000 voters of the county, would submit that question to an election to be held within 150 days after either adoption of the resolution or validation of the petition. The election in Sedgwick County, if it's approved, it would require the lottery to enter into a contract for the management of a racetrack gaming facility at the Wichita Greyhound Park in accordance with the Expanded Lottery Act. If the question fails, then that question can be resubmitted to the voters pursuant to the statute at any time. However, if the question is approved at an election, then the question cannot be resubmitted at any future election. Additionally, as a cleanup, and right after passage of KELA, the Wyandotte and Crawford counties posed this question, and it did pass. And so there is language in there deeming those counties to have satisfied this local election requirement to authorize the lottery to operate slot machines at racetrack facilities in those counties. The potential for a new election on this question in Sedgwick County and to operate a racetrack gaming facility in that county has led to the issue of whether that action would create a violation of state law or a breach of the management contracts the lottery already has with existing casino managers. And so Section 5 of Senate Bill 262 addresses that potential issue. Section 5 of the bill would require that before entering into any racetrack gaming facility contract, the executive director of the lottery is to provide notice of the intention to do so to all casino managers that are located in the same gaming zone. So this would be, if we're talking about Wichita and Central County, this would be the South Central gaming zone. The casino manager in that zone then has 60 days to file an action alleging a statutory violation or breach of contract claim. And that lawsuit is to be filed with the state Supreme Court, which is also by this legislation given original jurisdiction over such lawsuits. The lawsuit cannot seek injunctive or equitable relief, but can claim monetary damages. However, under 262, those monetary damages are limited to the privilege fee paid by the casino manager, plus interest accrued from the date the lawsuit was first filed. Additionally, only that casino manager under the bill would be have the right to bring that lawsuit at the time. No other casino manager could bring such action. Then the executive director waits for a final order from the Kansas Supreme Court. If there are no damages awarded to the casino manager, then the management contract can be executed by the executive director. If there are damages awarded to the casino manager, then the proposed racetrack gaming facility manager must pay an amount equal to the certified amount of those damages to the lottery. That payment is then going to be deposited into a privilege fee repayment fund established by the bill, which the lottery will then use to actually pay the awarded damages to the casino manager. Under Senate Bill 262, under Section 5, the lottery would then enter into a repayment plan with the racetrack gaming facility manager to repay the manager for that upfront payment of the awarded damages in the form of monthly payments that would be not less than 50% of the revenue the lottery is receiving from the operation of that racetrack gaming facility. In conjunction with Section 5 and the authorization for the new vote in potentially Central County, the bill also amends different sections of the Expanded Lottery Act. One of those is an amendment to 74-A734 to state that a similar gaming facility does not include a racetrack gaming facility when we're talking about similar lottery gaming facilities. Also, there's amendment to 8741 to clarify the number of racetrack gaming facilities that may be operated in the state. And then there's an amendment to the statute that breaks down the distribution of slot machine and net income. And I provided a chart in the memo that was in your packets comparing what is under the current 74-8747 with what is proposed under Senate Bill 262. The bill proposes a distribution of revenue that is more similar to the distribution of revenue for lottery gaming facility revenues. You see, it would be 22% would go to the state and the Expanded Lottery Act Revenues Fund. There would be percentages ranging from 2 to 3% for the local communities, counties, and cities where the facility is located. Only 0.5% of the income would go to the Problem Gambling and Addictions Grant Fund. There would be a 0.1% of the income from the South Central Gaming Zone facility to the Horse Council Fund, which is created by the bill. And then the balance would all go to the racetrack gaming facility manager. The remaining provisions of the bill pertain to horse racing. There are new provisions regarding official breed registering agencies for horses to make recommendations to the Racing and Gaming Commission on economic development in rural Kansas. There's also a Horse Council Fund being created to help develop, promote, and represent the horse industry in Kansas. And then there's some amendments to the Parimutuel Racing Act to reduce the fees for facility licensees conducting horse racing, live horse racing, and for the required number of days necessary for a simulcast license. The bill will go into effect on July 1st if enacted, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Senator Hildebrand and Senator Longbottom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, on existing casinos, can they offer parimutuel racing right now?
No.
Currently?
No, they are restricted to lottery games, which are games that are authorized or class 3 games under tribal compacts. And so that does not include simulcast, nor are they in a position to meet the requirements under the Parimutuel Racing Act to get a simulcast license.
And then just one other follow-up question. So I was reading through the bill, and it does away with live racing. It's all strictly parimutuel with lottery machines?
No, the horse racing could still be conducted. It does away with the Greyhound racing, and it does away with parimutuel betting on Greyhound races. So these racetrack gaming facilities could run live horse races, and they could conduct parimutuel wagering on horse races, simulcast wagering on horse races, and then they could also have slot machines being operated on the facility by the Kansas Lottery.
So if they were a dog track, they would only be able to offer parimutuel racing plus the slot machines. Is that correct?
Yeah, they could do parimutuel simulcasting of horse races and slot machines.
So we would have a casino that would just be able to offer simulcast.
It would be a slot machine facility that could offer simulcast, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Longbottom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, I want to make sure I have a clear understanding of Section 5. So Section 5 sets up in case of litigation that the original casino contracts will have been broken. So I assume that if we have that provision in there, then we're pretty confident that that's what's going to happen. So as I understand it, the facility gaming manager would pay the upfront fee, which could be up to $61 million plus interest. But then we're going to take our state revenue and pay back that facility gaming revenue manager over time. Is that correct?
Yes, if there are damages awarded in the case to the casino manager, the racetrack facility manager would pay that amount to the state up front in order to get the management contract signed. And then the state would repay that amount back to the racetrack facility manager, and monthly payments out of the revenue the state would otherwise be retaining from operations of that facility.
So in other words, the citizens of the state of Kansas are paying that penalty, not the facility gaming manager, only they're out some cash for a while.
No, yeah, the award would ultimately be paid by the state.
Okay, thank you very much.
Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Jason. The problem gaming fund in this bill, it reduces it from 2% to 0.5%. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Falscadeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, so if this legislation passes, the authorization piece in there to allow a revote in Cedric County, would that be in a special election, or would it just be on the ballot during a regular election?
The election has to take place within 150 days after either the petition has been submitted and validated or the resolution adopted. Most likely that would end up being a special election, given it has to be conducted within a certain number of days. But if it's offered at a certain period, time of the year in which you could have it at the general election and still be within that time period, then they could put it on the general election ballot if they so chose.
Any other questions for Jason? Our first proponent is R. Scott Beeler with Lathrop GPM, and welcome to the Senate.
Thank you, sir. R. Scott Beeler, as a proponent today. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak to this committee, and I've had the honor of speaking to it many, many times before. I go back all the way to 1988 with the passage of the Parimutuel Racing Act, and I was the original drafter of that bill. So I think I have as much history as anybody does on this subject. And so you might find it odd that I am here with a beginning statement of, yes, this bill makes new law. It essentially abolishes greyhound racing and all dog racing betting in the state of Kansas. And so that's a bit of a sad day, but as a number of people have said to me, you know, times change. And what was first on the minds of people maybe in 1988 is not today. And perhaps their value systems or otherwise have changed. And this bill recognizes that. And so, yes, it does eliminate all greyhound racing and dog racing and the betting on those sports in the state of Kansas. Now, I want to add something to that. We apologize in the sense of the length of this bill and appreciate the fact that all of you have taken time to look at it, but I'll suggest to you that the major parts of the reason for the length is the fact that this one change. Because our legislation mentioned greyhound racing and things that were unique to it for all of those years, and they're now, they're gone away. The principal issues of this bill, despite its length, are the revote in Sedgwick County, the change of the percentage from 40% that was applicable to racinos or racetrack gaming facilities to 22%, and then the litigation protocols that go along with it. I've already heard a couple of questions here today from members of the committee that are a bit inaccurate in how this would work. So if you'll bear with me, I'll try to walk through this bill a little bit myself, and appreciated Jason's comments and certainly agree with him on what has been said. Needless to say, folks are aware of the fact that Wyandotte County voted in favor of having EGMs, electronic gaming machines, all the way back in the late 80s and early 90s, and that was a vote of over 80%. We also know as Southeast Kansas, Crawford County voted in favor as well. And our Attorney General, in the infamous opinion that folks have heard so much about, written some years ago now, referenced the fact that those votes put the issue of whether you can behind us. You don't go back and revisit that. So when we talk about a revote here, we're really only talking about a revote in Sedgwick County. And here's the reason why. Our legislation from day one in the state of Kansas has always allowed 4 casino properties called lottery gaming facilities. And they are in 4 geographic locations and zones, as we call them: the Northeast, the Southeast, the South Central, and the Southwest. Similarly, our legislation has always allowed 3 racetrack gaming facilities, or racinos, in the same gaming zones, except for the Southwest, which was always, from a populous standpoint, not going to have a racetrack. So my point is, nothing about this legislation changes any of that. We've always supported in each of those gaming zones there would be 1 each of these facilities. Not casinos, 1 casino or lottery gaming and 1 racino racetrack gaming facility in the Northeast, the Southeast, and the South Central. But we don't have those. And why don't we? Well, let's start with the fact in Wichita, and it was August 7, 2007, nearly 14 years ago, you had a vote. There were 100,000 votes cast, and it failed by 243 votes 14 years ago. As I said, times change. Folks thought about things change. There were no other casinos in the area at the time of that vote. Now you have a casino right down the road, just outside the county line of Sedgwick County, that has 1,750 electronic gaming machines in a county other than Sedgwick, pulling the folks from Sedgwick down there. They have 50 table games at that facility. Well, so last year, or pardon me, 2019, I always forget to skip the COVID year, but 2019, we did a survey in Sedgwick County to find out how the populace felt about things today, almost a decade and a half later. 91% of the folks in the survey said they supported having a revote. It's a dominant, prevalent feeling. As I said, Wyandotte County, all the way back then, voted just 80%, which was a tremendous victory. Sedgwick County is now 91%. Why would it be so high? Well, guess what? Across the street, across the highway from the old Wichita Greyhound Park, today is now operating a Wyandotte Tribe casino. Now, do they have pari-mutuel? No. Does the Kansas Star have pari-mutuel? No, to the senator's question. But we can't have table games at a casino either. Everybody has their little nuances. But from day one, again, the legislation in the state of Kansas has always allowed a racetrack facility to have EGMs. It's always been permitted. It's just a vote issue here. So why did it not happen? Times change. Again, times have changed. 40% to 22%. If we stood a slot machine right there and a slot machine right there of the identical manufacturer, the identical machine, one pays 40%, one pays 22%. Guess why there are no racetracks in operation with EGMs? It's economically unfeasible. It is a grossly unfair disparity, and it has proven true over time. So this legislation fixes that. It doesn't give anybody an advantage. It just levels the playing field. 40 becomes 22, and that means the lottery gaming, 4 facilities operate at 22%. The 3 racetracks, should they come on board, can operate at 22%. So what would have to happen here? Wichita, per this legislation, would have the right through a county resolution or a vote of 5,000 signatures of its citizens to put the issue on the ballot. It doesn't start gaming. It doesn't do EGMs. It just puts it on the ballot. And then the populace votes. If they vote yes, then yes. Wichita Greyhound Park, or whatever the name would be at the time, that is the facility, the racetrack gaming facility there, would have the right to have those electronic gaming machines that they've always been allowed to do, assuming a vote. So I say in this bill, or pardon me, in my comments in regard to the bill, you guys, you've seen this. This is what you do as legislators. You modify legislation every day, multiple times a day. The Attorney General has said you've always had the right here to modify legislation. With due respect, I've always disagreed with General Schmidt. I've always felt a revote was allowable. He doesn't share my opinion on that. Again, we respect one another's opinion. But this bill just clarifies it and says, well, yes, you can do that. So now what? What's the last issue? The litigation protocols, the scare tactics that you've heard about year in and year out if you've sat on this committee or perhaps other committees. Why would the casinos oppose this legislation that simply says we're trying to create additional revenue for the state of Kansas and for Sedgwick County? Why would they oppose it when the populace of Sedgwick County is moving out of the community, not in? Do they not need the jobs? Do they not want them? This is all about creating revenue. Why do they oppose it? They oppose it because they have a monopoly. And they've loved having that monopoly from day one. That 40% that the racetracks have had to pay have created that monopoly for them because it's financially unfeasible for them to stay in business.
Peter, we go to the conclusion. We've got other conferees.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Let me hurry through that. I heard a question earlier about the amount of money. This bill restricts this litigation protocol to the Supreme Court. They get to make one final decision. Two, the amount of damages to your Senator Longbine question is limited to that particular zone's lottery gaming facility manager. They're the ones impacted, if they are impacted. So it is not 60 million. It would be whatever their privilege fee was for that zone. It's limited to them. And interest from the date that accrued, and that is the date of the notice. So, and then it is indeed that license does not issue unless the racetrack gaming manager puts that money up. And then to your point, the repayment of that money comes only from revenues of the racetrack gaming facility paid to the state at a minimum of 50%. My point is simply this, and I'll conclude, that those are revenues not that coming out of the pockets of the citizens of Kansas. Those revenues aren't there in the first place. They're smoke and windows today. They only get repaid if additional revenues are created by the racetrack gaming facility coming online. If that number is zero, there is zero to be repaid. If it is 100 million, then there was as much as 50 million of that could be used at any one time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your kind extension. And I did author much of this, so if there are questions, I'm happy to stand for those, sir.
Thank you. And questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Next proponent is Terry Humphrey for the stray dog policy. Terry, welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chairman Alley and members of the committee. Good morning. I am Terry Humphrey. I'm the lobbyist for the Humane Society of the United States and Stray Dog Policy. I'm also representing 47 other humane societies and shelters across Kansas that oppose greyhound racing. We support Senate Bill 262, which removes the statutory authorization of greyhound racing and wagering on greyhound racing in Kansas. Our continued support for this bill is dependent on the prohibitions against racing and wagering on dog racing remaining in the bill. If these provisions are removed, we will strongly oppose the bill. Under the current Kansas law, a racetrack cannot operate electronic gaming machines or slots unless it conducts at least 100 live greyhound races per week or a minimum of 13 a day. Senate Bill 262 officially decouples this cruel statutory mandate to conduct live greyhound racing in order to have slots. Dog racing is a money loser. Not a single track has reopened in Kansas over the past 13 years due to steep losses from greyhound racing. Between 1990 and 2007, wagering on live dog races declined by 95%. Dog racing is unpopular. Across the country, greyhound racing is all but died out. In 41 states, live greyhound racing is either illegal or unauthorized. Only 4 states still have active tracks, and one of those, Arkansas, is phasing out its only track next year. West Virginia and Iowa have considered decoupling or have decoupled. The racetrack owners understand the financial burden of greyhound racing, and like the rough-in companies, are attempting to eliminate the loss leader. It is time for Kansas to face facts. Propping up a dying racing industry at taxpayers' expense is a bad bet for Kansas and for dogs. It is time to decouple the racing requirement and end greyhound racing. Thank you.
Terry, thank you for your testimony. Committee, we will hold questions until the final proponent And our last conferee as a proponent is Terry Garberg on behalf of ks.gov. And Terry is with us remotely. Terry, welcome to the committee.
Thank you. I am speaking on behalf of ks.gov, a Greyhound rescue group for Missouri and Kansas. If Kansas is to support legal casino games and sports wagering, we support decoupling it from the unpopular industry of dog racing. The National Geographic magazine recently published an article called "The Era of Greyhound Racing is Coming to an End." It documents the corruption, including mafia involvement, fixed races, and doping of the dogs. It describes the serious injuries to greyhounds, many of which occurred at the Woodlands Racetrack in Kansas. In the last 6 months of their final season, 80 dogs were injured and 19 died, per the Kansas Racing and Gaming Commission. The article also mentions the number of dogs bred versus the number that actually race, a statistic that the industry hides. The Greyhound racing record has said that 30% of greyhounds bred for racing actually compete, leaving open the fate of the other 70%. They may be sold to testing labs, put to death, abandoned, or sent to rescue groups, putting the burden of care on volunteers. Dog racing is inhumane to other animals as well. A Kansas Greyhound breeder was recently caught on video torturing rabbits in what is called live lure training, or blooding. To excite a chase instinct in young greyhounds, the rabbits' legs are tied, they're dangled in front of the dogs, then let loose to be attacked. This was taking place in a field not 2 miles from the National Greyhound Association headquarters. These kinds of training methods were documented in Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas in 2020. Blooding is done secretively, and the way to end it is to end greyhound racing. ks.gov has rescued over 5,600 greyhounds at a cost of $1.25 million. They are often severely underweight, riddled with parasites, have untreated wounds, and broken bones. Being crated for endless hours leaves them with crate sores, and some of them chew on the wire crates from stress and boredom, wearing their teeth down to the gums. Approximately 80% come in with one or more of these conditions. We support decoupling greyhound racing and simulcast from casino games and wagering. Please act to end greyhound racing for good. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, committee. We will now open up for questions for the proponent conferees. Do we have any questions? Seeing none. Oh, Senator Ware.
Thank you so much. You know, I've been hearing an awful lot from folks who say, my goodness, know that these dogs are a big investment. We, of course, take care of our dogs. So I'm curious, I guess, I'm wondering why we know that horses aren't being mistreated, but we assume that dogs are?
Would you like for me to answer that?
Anyone who could answer it.
Terry, if you feel comfortable answering, go ahead.
There are a couple of factors that go into that. Number one, horses are much, much more expensive to breed and raise and train than the dogs are. The dogs, you know, are born 8, 10, 12 at a time. Horses are mostly 1 at a time. And they're very expensive animals. So yeah, there's a lot more money that goes into each and every horse. The greyhounds are more of a commodity. They're just overbred in the hopes of finding that fast one. And then the ones who aren't interested in racing or who are slow or whatever are just at risk. And the greyhounds only race until about age 4. And then they have to be retired because they're worn out by then. And the hard life on the tracks just destroys their bodies. And so then you've got a dog that's, you know, a little beaten up, but he's still young. And what do you do with all of those? So the dogs, yeah, they're not all that expensive really at the end of the day. And it's a numbers game for the breeders.
Committee, seeing no further questions, we will now move to opponent testimony. We do not have any neutral. First up is Kevin Fowler. He represents and manages the Boot Hill Casino, KC Star Casino, and Kansas Crossing Casino. Kevin, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Acting Chair Hildebrand. My name is Kevin Fowler, and I am an attorney here in Topeka, and I'm appearing on behalf of the managers of, I think that's better, the managers of the Boot Hill Casino, which was the first casino in Kansas, the Kansas Star Casino in Mulvane, and the Kansas Crossing Casino, which is our newest casino in Pittsburgh. And I am appearing on behalf of the managers in opposition of Senate Bill 262. It's a bad bill. It's one that reneges on the commitments the legislature made in the Kansas Expanded Lottery Act, which was passed in 2007, to the casino managers that have invested over $1 billion in developing and managing the 4 casinos in the gaming zones in Kansas. Now, I have submitted written testimony. I'm not going to read that testimony, but I would like to make a few points. The first point is it's not accurate to say that we have always allowed slot machines at racetrack gaming facilities. That's an incomplete statement. We have permitted in Keela slot machines at racetrack gaming facilities in the event that local communities approved them, which of course they were rejected in Sedgwick County in 2007. And the second and perhaps more important requirement is that there be at least 360 days of live racing at that racetrack every year. That was in Keela. It's in Keela today. And this bill strips that live racing requirement. The fact of the matter is, under this bill, racetrack gaming facilities will be racetrack gaming facilities in name only. They will be full-fledged casinos, and the only difference is, just like any casino in the country that has a sports book, they will have 60 days of simulcast horse racing. That's it. If you have 60 days of simulcast horse racing, you can open a casino in 3 gaming zones, 365 days a year, and there is not a requirement for 1 live horse race. Not one. The reason slots at tracks were permitted by the legislature in 2007 is because we had 2 commercial parimutuel racetracks that were in operation, the Woodlands in Wyandotte County and the Wichita Greyhound Park in Sedgwick County. They were struggling financially, and in an effort to support those live racing activities, the legislature said, you can have a limited number of slot machines to support your live racing programs. And that's why the distribution of revenue was different for the racetrack gaming facility managers. It was never intended to create competing competing casinos with the lottery gaming facilities that the state authorized in the 4 gaming zones. There was a limited amount of slot revenue that would be made available to the racetrack gaming facility managers to help subsidize live racing activities. That was the reason for slots at tracks in the first place. And the fact of the matter is, ever since Keela was enacted in 2007, none of the racetracks ever sought permission to install slot machines. Instead, they have sought since then to gut the requirement for live racing. They don't want live racing. What they want is a traditional casino that has a sports book with simulcast racing. And if they have that for 60 days a year, they're authorized to have 365 days a year slot machines, which will be direct competition to the state-owned and operated casinos in Wyandotte County, Ford County, Crawford County, and in Sedgwick County. Well, actually, Sedgwick County does not permit gaming currently. They voted that down in 2007. It's Sumner County. Mulvane is where the Kansas Star Casino is located. Now, they would like a revote in Sedgwick County, but the fact of the matter is, when Sedgwick County voters voted down slots at racetracks in 2007, under KELA, that vote had consequences, and those consequences extend to the year 2032. KELA says, in fact, commits to the casino managers, we will not implement any similar gaming facilities to your casino operations in any of the gaming zones until July 1, 2032. That, of course, is something that is incorporated into the written contracts of all lottery gaming facility managers, and that's something that they relied upon in investing $1 billion in our state economy. And now that we're well into those gaming contracts, the state is suggesting in this bill that we pull the rug out from under their feet.
Kevin, I do apologize. We are running really short on time. If you could wrap up your testimony, it would be appreciated.
I would like as much time as other conferees, but I will wrap up. The main points are set out in my written testimony. This is a bill that asks for 3 Las Vegas-style casinos that will be racetrack gaming facilities in name only. The state is buying a huge legal liability. The Attorney General said that in 2016 when considering similar legislation relating to a revote, and he said it most recently in 2019, and as a consequence, we would urge you not to support this bill. Thank you.
Kevin, thank you for your testimony. Committee, next we have Jim Garland, Executive Director of the National Greyhound Association in Abilene, Kansas. Jim, welcome to the committee.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. You've had my written testimony, so I'll try and be brief as time is getting short. Despite what you may have heard, the greyhound industry is not a dying industry. As witnessed in West Virginia right now, the tracks in West Virginia are on pace to handle $75 million in the first quarter of this year, which is nearly 3 times as much as they've done in any previous year. In fact, in West Virginia 2 years ago, similar legislation was proposed to eliminate greyhound racing, decouple it. Not only did they defeat that bill, but in debate about it, the senators wished they could help to expand and promote greyhound racing because they saw what was coming with the explosion of simulcasting, and now that state is reaping those benefits. Greyhounds and greyhound farms have been a part of the fabric of the Kansas agriculture community for many, many years, and it'd be a shame to have that taken away based on the baseless concerns of animal rights activists or the desire of one business owner to do so. I'm vehemently opposed to SB 262. I don't want to see greyhound racing eliminated or discriminated against as it is in this bill. In what world does one business owner get to choose and gut legislation, i.e. SB 66 that was passed years ago, that he knew he had to operate under? Instead, he makes his own, completely guts that law and makes his own. If Mr. Ruffin didn't want to run greyhounds in Sedgwick County, let him choose to do it down there. There's no reason to take the rest of the industry down to do what he wants to do in Sedgwick County. Even the NGA, my organization, is excluded from having any kind of pari-mutuel activity or possibly becoming a fair meat licensee under this bill. We weren't asked if we didn't want greyhound racing anymore, if we didn't want that opportunity, but instead they went ahead and did it. As other conferees have pointed out, this bill also laughingly refers to all these tracks as racetrack facility gaming venues when there's no racing at them. There will be no requirement for horse racing either. In fact, I believe they could have 1 day of simulcast horse racing and meet the requirements of this bill. It's ridiculous. There's many other bad actors in many sports. I also want to point out that there was testimony given that greyhound racing is banned in 41 states. We've submitted testimony from Racing Commissioners International that obviously refutes that. But anyway, we don't ban other sports in total because there's bad actors in certain places. We wouldn't ban high school wrestling because some people think it's a bad sport for kids. So because we've seen some individual things said, doesn't mean we should do it. This shouldn't be banned across the board because of one company wants to do it specifically for their needs in one county of Kansas. You'll have the rest of my testimony. Try to be short. Thank you for your time.
Jim, thank you for your testimony. Committee, our last conferee as an opponent is Mike Strickland. He's with the Kansas Greyhound Association in Abilene, Kansas. Mike, welcome to the committee.
Good morning, committee members. I'll try and be brief. Please see my background in the family in our operation. And I speak for several families in the same position that hire employees. I want to point out I've hired 4 veterinarians on my operation over the years. My daughters have helped growing up raising the animals on my farm. I've been engaged in cattle, horses, and to go along with the dogs even to this day. I'd like to make a point that speaks directly to this bill. You're debating here today. We hear a lot about the legality of greyhound racing across the United States. I thought I would read a quote and a statement that was reposted in 2018 from the chairman of the Association of Racing Commissioners International. The chairman in his statement was responding to a campaign flyer. He stated, "I have learned through media reports that a report called High Stakes Greyhound Racing in the United States has been circulating from a group called Grade 2K USA. Recipients were told in the very first line of this report, greyhound racing is illegal in 39 states. In fact, live racing is illegal in only one state, Idaho. Simulcasting of greyhound racing is, however, legal and conducted as is live horse racing and simulcasting." Now, that statement was posted in 2018. As Jim has alluded to, that statement has been updated as of 2 weeks ago. Now, another thing I want to take, again, I'll try and be brief, but I wanted to touch on injuries just to put things a little bit better context. The Kansas Racing Commission records show that there are 80 injuries in the last 6 months of racing in Kansas City. Now, during that period of time, there's 23,000 individual runs during that course of time. Now, if you figure the injury rate, that is 0.3%. I don't like analogies sometimes, they're difficult, but maybe to give you an idea, an estimated 1.2 million dogs, pet dogs, are killed by vehicle accidents each year out of an estimated 90 million dogs. Again, these are estimates, just to give you kind of a context of things. I oppose SB 262 because I believe in the dedication and the welfare we've put into our greyhounds over the years, and the strong negative impact it will have on Kansas families and their employees. I believe in, I would appreciate that you would take note of the adoption group that my family has worked with for decades attached to my written testimony. Now, a lot of these groups that have placed these animals for us after racing, certainly in the last decade, have dealt with this hands-on, particularly in closing or opening racetracks. We have a terrific adoption network, and we fully appreciate their support. I would also appreciate if you would view in our written testimony, there is 2 expert veterinarian professionals that deal with injuries and drug testing. Again, I appreciate it, and I hope to get your support to oppose 262. Thank you.
Mike, thank you for your testimony. Committee, we will open up for questions to the opponents, but I forgot to direct your attention to written only. There are 5 written only proponent testimonies, and we also have 9 written only opponent testimonies. Committee, do we have any questions for any of the opponent conferees? Seeing none. Committee, the hearing for substitute for House Bill 2089 is now closed. There's nothing else to come before the committee. Oh, I apologize. Thank you. I misread that. Yes. The hearing for Senate Bill 262 is closed. Thank you. And committee, we are adjourned. Thank you.